It is the 9th of April, Rabbi Levitt, Horeb.
Okay, Chodesh Tov, Umavorach, Bezrat Hashem. So we are continuing with the historical and intellectual background of the Horeb, which is an introduction by the translator, Diane Grunfeld, Sal.
Good morning, Rabbi Levitt.
Good morning, Roy. Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov to you and to Lou and to Meir.
Thank you. You too, Roy.
I saw you in.
Bezrat Hashem. What?
No, I saw Meir in Shul this morning.
Yeah, I duchen twice today.
Right.
Yeah, we have to pay Mayor double today.
Oh, you got to be kidding.
Working overtime.
That's right.
Okay, double bracha.
Okay.
So we're on page 24. For all of you that can read the, what are these? Are these called Roman numerals?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they usually use them in introductions or prefaces. But the actual chapters are usually in Arabic numerals.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So the top of the page. What can I know? What ought I to know? Ought I to do?
I'm just listening. I'll
Okay. Lou, you want to start?
Okay. What can I know? What ought I to do? What may I hope for? These were the three cardinal questions of Kantian philosophy, which was destined to have such a far-reaching influence on modern Jewry. According to Kant, we can never have knowledge in the scientific sense of the existence of God, moral freedom, and personal immortality. They are beyond the ken of human reason, which can never prove or disprove them, because to use the terminology of Kant, they are not phenomena, but noumena. Human reason does not see things as they are in themselves. Rather, it sees them through colored glasses. That is to say, through space and time, which are the mind's eyes. Instead of deifying human reason, as had been done in the period before him, Kant rather claims a limit to it in order to force, so to speak, the overflowing river into its natural channel, which is the phenomenal world, and to exclude forever the sphere of the absolute or the nominal world. Kant very candidly admitted, even from the point of view of his critical philosophy, that there may be beyond the phenomenal world a world of noumena, that is, realities which cannot be perceived, which are inaccessible and consequently superior to human reason. While pure reason will never be able to demonstrate scientifically the existence of God and the immortality of the soul, a practical reason, that is, our moral consciousness, demands them as postulates. Thus, many first principles, such as the existence of God, immortality, above all, the freedom of the will, which the critique of pure reason had admitted as possible but incapable of proof by theoretical reason alone, are in the critique of practical reason, definitely postulated on the ground that morality is inconceivable without them. Kant's impact on the thought of the Jewish intellectuals of his generation was far-reaching. There existed close ties of friendship between him and Moses Mendelssohn, whom Kant called the German Plato. It was Jewish thinkers who first popularized Kantian philosophy. Among them were the Jewish Polish philosopher Solomon Maimon, the writer Lazarus ben David, and the medical man Marcus Hertz, the friend of Mendelssohn, and of the Prussian crown prince who later became King Frederick Wilhelm III. It is highly characteristic that a profound Orthodox thinker of our own generation, the late Isaac Brewer, grandson and expositor of Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, could have written the following sentences in his autobiography. Quote, God caused to rise among the nations the exceptional man Kant, who, on the basis of the Socratic and Cartesian skepticism, brought about that Copernican turn, whereby the whole of man's reasoning was set in steel limits, within which alone perception is legitimized. Blessed be God who, in his wisdom, created Kant. Every real Jew who seriously and honestly studies the critique of pure reason is bound to pronounce his amen on it. Go not about after your own heart and your own eyes. Or in Kantian language, pursue not the messages of your inner and outer experience, for pursuing them, thou wilt be unfaithful to me. The whole Kantian theory of perception is that most adequate commentary on this fundamental injunction of the Torah. The whole Kantian theory of perception is the most adequate commentary on this fundamental injunction of the Torah.
Mhm. Okay. Very good. Mary, you want to continue?
Okay, until my computer acts up on me.
Oh,
You might hear some weird noises coming from it. Okay. While Kant's critical philosophy, which showed the limits to the human mind, was a great aid to positive religion, including traditional Judaism, his moral philosophy, and especially his theory of moral autonomy, in the sense of moral self-legislation, proved, as we shall indicate in due course, a hindrance to the continued submission of many Jews to their traditional law as a guide to daily existence. We have here dealt extensively with the critical and moral philosophy of Kant, and we shall have to come back to it later on, because the revolution he caused in modern and secular thinking, especially in the theology of the 19th century, has had a direct bearing on the great religious conflicts within Jewry of the era of emancipation and beyond. For Jews, the most important consequence of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era was the crumbling of the walls of the European ghetto, wherein they had lived for centuries, leading their own peculiar life, which was ruled in all its manifestations by the biblical Talmudical law. When they entered the social, cultural, and political life of the world outside, many of them began to think that Jewish laws and observances created certain obstacles against free intermingling with non-Jewish society and conduct of business and professional life in the wider sphere. It was particularly the strict observance of the Sabbath and the dietary laws which the leading Jews of the society life felt to be in their way. In vain had Moses Mendelssohn, the father of the cultural side of Jewish emancipation, warned and entreated his brethren not to buy their political freedom at the cost of their most sacred treasure, the Torah. The glaring light of European society life outside the ghetto had dazzled and blinded the eyes of Israel's sons and daughters. And Neheye kechol hagoyim. Let us be like all the other nations had become the motto of the day. What happened in the generation after Mendelssohn was not merely emancipation of the Jews in the political sense, but their emancipation from historical Judaism. Whoops. I don't know if that's going to bother people.
Stop doing me.
Okay, I can continue reading then. It should stop eventually. There were three clear stages in what was later called Reform Judaism. The first step was taken by laymen headed by the rich and ambitious Israel Jacobson, the president of the Jewish consistory of the new French kingdom of Westphalia. Jacobson and his friends were not concerned with a theoretical justification for their disregard of Jewish laws and observances hallowed by generations. They simply dropped those Jewish laws which stood in the way of their political and social ambitions. The opening by Jacobson of a reformed temple in Sicen amid the tolling of church bells was merely an attempt to assimilate Judaism as much as possible to the Christian religion, the religious faith of the majority of the surrounding population. The second stage was reached when Michael Krisenach of Frankfurt am Main, a Jewish scholar and teacher at Frankfurt Philanthropin, tried to justify in his work, ironically called Shulchan Aruch. Well, that's ironic, yeah. The reform or non-observance of Jewish laws by his own interpretation of Bible and Talmud. He still recognized, however, the divine origin of both the written and oral law. The third stage of the development was the ideology of the Reform movement as created by Abraham Geiger and Samuel Holdheim. The latter, in his work on the autonomy of the rabbis and the principle of Jewish marriage, declared all legal parts of the Pentateuch as no longer valid and binding on the Jew. Wow. Only the general religious and universal moral ideas contained in the Pentateuch could be conceded permanent validity. Wow. Holdheim went farthest in his reforms. He transformed the Sabbath to Sunday. Wow. Abolished the Holy Tongue as the tongue of prayer and eliminated all references to Jewish nationhood, Zion and Jerusalem in prayer books. Wow. He actively encouraged intermarriage and explicitly stated that mixed marriages between Jews and non-Jews were valid also from the Jewish religious point of view and might be solemnized by a rabbi according to the rites of the Jews, even in cases where the non-Jew had not been received into Judaism. As far as Abraham Geiger was concerned, who must be considered as the leading and most gifted mind of the reformers, he subscribed to the higher criticism of the Pentateuch, denied its divine origin, ridiculed dietary laws, and advocated the abolition of circumcision. In his essay on the uselessness and evil consequences of religious formalism, he outpolled Paul in his wild attack on Jewish laws and observances, to which he not only refused to ascribe any moral value, but on the contrary, maintained that they were empty ceremonies, which in modern times had lost their meaning and undermined the deeper religious consciousness and moral development of the modern Jew. Geiger had such a pathological hatred of the Talmud that he seriously suggested that those Jews who clung to it and its authority were not worthy of civil emancipation. An insinuation which caused a spirited reaction by Gabriel Reiser, the courageous fighter for Jewish emancipation, although he himself was not an Orthodox Jew. The consequences of the reformers' literary activities were soon felt. Fidelity to Jewish observances, the study of Mishnah and Talmud, even of the Bible in Hebrew, were being systematically stamped out. Things took their worst turn in the community of Frankfurt am Main, which used to be a citadel of observant Judaism. The council of that ancient Jewish congregation brought all the strength of the secular authorities to bear upon those of their brethren who still tenaciously clung to the execution of their religious duties. They pursued their fanatical intentions with a tenacity of purpose worthy of a better cause. By the mechanisms of that council, it became an indictable offense, checked and punished by the police, to teach the young the Bible in Hebrew and the Talmud. Wow. Teachers and scholars actually hid themselves in lofts and other hiding places, excuse me, when studying subjects in order to elude the tyrannical powers of the Jewish Communal Council. But the latter was on the alert. The hiding places were discovered, the teachers were banished from the city, and those men who had undertaken the care of providing the means for pursuing these studies were forbidden to do so under the penalty of 50 florins each. An educational establishment for the study of Talmud, together with general secular subjects, to which a generous member had bequeathed the sum of 50,000 florins, was suppressed, and the Jewish Communal Council boasted of this feat in an official document. From time immemorial, there had existed in Frankfurt a society under the name of Tzitzit Society. Wow. one of its objects was for the members to gather every Sabbath after the synagogue service in a private house to edify themselves by reading and interpreting certain sections of the Pentateuch and the prophets. But this also was declared to be an indictable offense. The Council of the Jewish Community effected a prohibition of these gatherings, and the society ceased to exist. Wow, this is amazing. Okay, I guess, yeah, we got time. Okay. To characterize the spirit of revolt against Jewish law, instigated by the reformers of those days, Hirsch put the following vigorous outburst into the mouth of a certain Peretz, an avid reader of Geiger's Wissenschaftliche Zeitschrift. Sounds like a scientific journal or something. Who, through an imaginary figure, can be considered typical of enlightened 19th century Jews in Germany whose intoxication with the doctrines of Aufklärung, enlightenment, had turned them into fanatical opponents of traditional Judaism. Wow. Let me just stop for a drink.
Please do.
It's hard to believe that that there were members of the Jewish society that can turn so viciously against Orthodox Judaism. Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go on. 19th century, happy century of light and freedom. How happy are we to walk in thy spirit? You have broken the chain of night. Your rays have brought light and life where night and graves had ruled for millennia. Your most glorious victory you celebrate in contemporary Judaism. Look at Judaism. For centuries, it was enchained by a parasitic rigidity of outward forms and tried with the feathers of stupid man-made decrees. Wow. Huh. In spite of knife and club, and in spite of tyranny and oppression, Judaism of old refused to join European civilization. But your soft rays of light, O 19th century, have achieved what oppression and force could never have done. You have melted the 1,000-year-old ice of the rigid forms of Judaism. In your spirit, you cast away the chain of parasitic interpretation. We ignore the barriers with which a medieval spirit set up against life and enjoyment. We shake off the oriental dust of Palestine, and in the evening dress and bow tie with poetry and logic, aesthetics and dogmatics, with politics and dramatics. We enjoy the new life of Europe. And we even enjoy a diet which we have never tasted before. Yes, we are intoxicated with classical European thoughts. We drink from the spiritual wells of Greece and Rome. Now we can become prelates and locksmiths just as we please. We are no longer the ancient people from Asia, but Britons and Gauls, Belgians and Germans, century of the Constitution. Judaism, too, has become constitutional. The times are gone when you could legislate for us, O Moses of Egypt. As long as we were under age, you alone had the legislative power. But now we have come of age. Now your laws are only suggestions. We reject everything that cannot justify itself before the form of our intellect and moral convictions. Our means of power are exegesis and criticism, and the 2,000-year-old fairy tales of tradition have long since ceased to impress or mislead us. It is true that there still exists old fanatics and young hypocrites who believe that they can stay the wheel of time, who would like to turn the convulsion of death of the Judaism of old into pangs of new birth, whose rigid minds still find joy in dead forms and in obsolete ceremonies, who try to revive the dead past and would fain extinguish the light of civilization, also only so recently lit, and who would like to put the people again into chains of old rigid law, which they have only just now shaken off under the influence of the spirit of the time. But these old fanatics and young hypocrites will never succeed. Behold, the fight is for light and truth, carrying aloft the torch of critical reason. They hurry along to meet me. They call on me to lead them. March on. We are going to storm the Talmudical Bastille. Wow.
Makes you very angry that that sort of history.
What's that, Roy?
I said it makes you very angry. It makes me angry.
Well,
Angry?
This is how Reform Judaism attacked the past and Orthodox Judaism. I mean, reading this book, a lot of people don't realize how I don't know the right English word, but sort of nasty, even worse than nasty. These reformers were against the Orthodox Jewish community.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we can go on still.
Okay.
Okay, and it goes on. And now Hirsch sees a picture that haunts him in his sleeping and waking hours. I saw Peretz at the head of a crowd, seized like him by wild frenzy, storming onto the Lord's house, waving their burning torches. Calm and exalted stood the temple of the divine law on top of the mountain. The mountain itself was crowded from top to bottom with the endless rows of all the noblemen who in times gone by for more than 3,000 years had lived and died for the divine law, teaching and heeding, doing and fulfilling the words of instruction of God's law, protecting it and fighting for it till the last breath. They saw the frantic crowd, heard their yelling shouts of joy. They recognized the aims of this wild onslaught and sadly bowed their heads and covered their faces. They were used to blows from strangers, from the enemies of their God, their people, and their law. They were willing to die and conquer for their people and its spiritual heritage, but not to offer the blushing cheek to the blows of their own sons. They covered their heads in shame, but the crowd stormed on, waving the torches. Mockingly, they singed the heads and robes of the Jewish sages, flung the ancient books upon the stake. The crackling flames devoured them, and the sparks blew heavenwards. It's as if these people had no idea of what or how the non-Jews persecuted the Jews through the ages. The Greeks, the Romans, even the Muslims to some degree, until they wanted to convert the Jews, and certainly the Christians. It's unbelievable. Okay, going on. The Holy Temple stood erect in serene calm, and the crowd would have liked to spare it, but the flames kindled by them had gone beyond their control. A billowing wave of fire covered the Temple Mount. The heat of fire forced open the gates of the sanctuary and moved the flames which Israel's own sons had kindled. The sanctuary burned down, together with the altar, the holy table, and the curtain. The flames penetrated the Holy of Holies and devoured the tablets of the law. From the mountain of Zion, the wildfire spread through countries and towns, burning to ashes all that was sublime and holy, until the world was a smoking wilderness, until finally the fire had spent itself on the worldwide and desolate scene of conflagration. Thus, a destructive torch kindled by frantic hands, having first been turned against tradition, destroyed God's sanctuary in the end, together with all that was noble and holy in man. And finally, it devoured the torchbearers themselves. As I gazed into the gruesome night, I saw the last flicker of Peretz's torch going up in smoke. The sad vision, however, was soon followed by another one of sublime beauty. It was dawn. The beams of the rising sun shone for a long row of imposing men clad in shining white robes. They were Israel's elders, judges, prophets, and the men of the great synod, the sages of the Talmud, and the great rabbis of succeeding generations. Leading this elevated assembly was Moshe, our teacher. His face radiated with heavenly splendor. The light broke forth from Moshe's countenance, lit the candelabrum, which had miraculously remained intact when the sanctuary burnt down. And as glowing light surrounded the candelabrum, behold, the temple rose again in its serene calm. Altar and table reappeared, and the holy curtain covered once more the Holy of Holies. The divine law rested again in the ark, protected by the cherubim of the Lord. The earth was again filled with joy and blessing. And behold, Moshe, our teacher, approached me and said, "How could you hesitate, my son, as you saw the struggle of delusion against truth, of man against God? Human arrogance and the lack of insight had removed heaven from the earth, had called my work that which was in reality the work of God, and had described the loyal messengers of the divine word deceivers and imposters." Wow. And you could hesitate inactively, even for a moment. Samson Raphael Hirsch no longer hesitated. This was the hour when he felt the call of providence and recognized his true vocation. It was then that he began to write his Horeb. Wow.
Hmm.
Doesn't give a very good picture of European Jewry during this period.
Oh, well. Yeah, what's the date over here? 1835.
Yeah, well, that's when it apparently was written. Oh, he was a chief rabbi of Oldenburg. Wow.
Just trying to think of what was happening in Eastern Europe at this time. But
No, in the 1830s, 1800s.
when was that? Uh, yeah, yeah, I have to take a look at don't know don't know exactly what what it was like. Okay. Um, you have to get a like a timeline. They have them 18, yeah, 1800s. I mean, there was we have great Rabbonim and communities in that time that were we don't we don't I mean the Malbim also had the Malbim as well as the Chassam Sofer also fought against reform.
Uh-huh.
Um, trying to don't know exactly whether they were at the same time as Rav Shamshin Rafal Hirsch. They were I think they were pretty much in the same time because this was what was happening in this was happening. Sam Sofer was yeah,
Yeah.
not just in Germany, in other words.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yes, the Malbim lived from 1809 to
Uh-huh.
1879. So he would have been what, in his mid-20s in 35.
I wonder how old Shamshin Raphael Hirsch was at this time.
Well, that's a good question. Let's see if I can quickly look it up. Okay, let's see. Yeah, he had the same dates, or similar dates, 1808 to 1888. So
Oh,
he's about the same age
same
as
age.
yeah.
Once
Malbim was
again,
born
so
in
that means
yeah. Malbim was 1809, he was 1808. And
so
we're
that
talking,
means that Shamshin Raphael Hirsch was 26 years old when he wrote this.
that's right. Must have been brilliant.
Wow.
But he certainly saw what was going on around him.
I mean, he was yeah, I mean, in addition to being brilliant, but he was quite young to take upon himself the it's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Well, it says in 1835 he became a chief rabbi here of Oldenburg.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's 25 and 2. He was 27 years old, I guess. Wow. But maybe it also reflected how I don't know the right word, how low, Judaism in general sunk in Europe. So I don't know. Excuse me.
I mean, there was, yeah, it's tricky. I mean, there was this was, I mean, at the same time that this movement of reform was going on, there was, I think there was very, very, what, in other words, it wasn't, there was also, great rabbonim and great communities as well that were, it seemed to be that they were flourishing. Sam Sofer, and he was about the same age as Rebbe Kiva Eger. So, but there was this and there was that. Both things existed. Like today, it's a little bit reminiscent of today. People, there's a lot of Torah today. There's a lot of yeshivas today. There's a lot of learning today, and on the other hand, there's a lot of movement that's anti.
That's true.
They're existing side by side.
There's also a very large contingent that is neither pro nor con.
Oh, you mean yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, also, the person I did my master's thesis on also lived in this time frame. Also born 1806.
Who was that?
Rabbi Isaac Leeser. He was born in Westphalia, Germany, but he ended up going to America and bringing Orthodox Judaism to America. He was involved in so many things. I just my particular thesis was his contributions to American Jewish education. He actually besides establishing kashrut in America, he translated the Bible into English. He was involved in Jewish education. He created the afternoon Hebrew schools. So after kids had school, they could learn about, their Jewish culture and ethnicity and everything, their religion. So he did a lot of other things. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but he's very instrumental. Unfortunately, he didn't live a long life. He was born in 1808 and died in 1868, just after the Civil War. So, but he had a lot
That's
of
like quite an astounding individual.
yeah. So, but he decided to leave Europe apparently to help the Jews in America, and he lived in Philadelphia. Matter of fact, I think his congregation, it still exists. It's called Mikveh Israel. the last time it was there, the last time I was in Philadelphia, which was quite a while ago, I think it's a synagogue, but it's also sort of a, I hate to call it a museum, but it sort of is, shows the reflection of Isaac Leeser and what he contributed to American Jewish society. So all these people were born in the early 1800s, apparently.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, I guess tomorrow we can read about how the Horeb came to be written.
Okay. Bezrat Hashem. Okay, very good, Mayor. Yashikoyach.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Chodesh Tov, Umavorach.
Yes, it's Chodesh Tov.
Amen.
Thank you,
Bezrat
Rabbi.
Hashem.
Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, this was very good. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. So that's what you're saying. It's an eye opener how fanatical and diabolical the some of these segments of this movement were in trying to tear down the Torah Judaism.
Yeah, they were basically joining the non-Jews, in attacking traditional Judaism. So, unfortunately, I mean, even if I think if you look at their places of worship, it was very, very much reflective of the churches of the day. The high ceilings, I guess the fancy, certainly unlike a shtibel or a Jewish, an Orthodox congregation.
Interesting.
Yeah. I did my thesis over 50 years ago, so I don't really remember it too well. And they all got destroyed or lost. So
Oh, you don't have a copy?
no, we had I donated a copy to the Baltimore Hebrew College, which was eventually dissolved and became part of I think Towson State. So I went to Towson State Library and they didn't have my copy there. My copy got destroyed in a flood.
Right.
And I don't know what happened to my parents' copy. I only printed 3 copies in book form. So, and I lost the typewritten, the original. So,
What a shame.
yeah, it really is. It really is. I sort of miss those days. I used to commute every day between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. to do my research. Because as I told you, well, maybe I didn't tell you, Isaac Leeser also had a monthly newspaper and reflecting what was going on in the Jewish world in the United States in those days. And that was the foundation of my thesis, Isaac Leeser and his Contribution to American Jewish Education was the name of it. So anyway, say Levitt. Okay, so have a great day, everybody.
Okay.
Amen.
Have a good day.
All the best, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you in a few minutes, Rabbi.
KK.